the radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, welcome everybody. Hope you're having as good of a week as one could have in the world as it is today. So I hope you're doing well. I have to tell you, I'm kind of down today. It's a rough week. I'm sick of tired of talking about coronavirus. I'm sick of tired of talking about politics. I'm sick and tired of our politicians. I'm sick and tired of our intellectuals. I've never been so ticked off, I think, in my life. Just the stupidity and the ignorance and everything else that's going on, it just makes it impossible for me to even contemplate this. The stock market is doing things that I have never seen, including in the 2008-2009 period. This is, in many respects, in certain sectors, in certain ways, this is worse than that. It's just full of irrationality, complete crazy times, nuttiness. And, there's still people out there, maybe even some people listening to the show, that are defending everything Trump has done, everything Trump will do. I mean, the world could end tomorrow. We could all go, be dead because of this idiot's policies, and nobody would care. I see posts on my Facebook account that, the virus is a democratic conspiracy. They conspired with the Chinese to do it. I mean, it's just, the world has gone insane. It's just gone completely insane. And so I'm going to have to, I don't know, I'm going to have to recover somehow and get back to giving you cultural analysis. So, in order to distract me from all this crap, in order to distract you from everything going on in your life and everything going on around you, and because we're all kind of hunkered down at home and isolated, and a lot of you I know are out of jobs or at least on hopefully paid leave or paid vacation. Some of you working from home, whatever. But I figured, why not just do a show where I just recommend to you great, what I like. Let's not say great. What I like in movies, in TV shows, in things that you can enjoy now while you're sitting at home. Take advantage of it. Take a break. Don't watch television. Don't read the news. Put on a good TV show and binge watch. What the hell, right? Now's the time. Now, those of you readers, read. I don't have a lot of recommendations when it comes to books. I'm not necessarily my thing. I'm not an expert. I think I know more about TV shows, movies, things like that. And music. And so I figure movies are great now, and this is a great time, I think, particularly with movies, to get out of your comfort zone, to experiment with movies that you might not normally see because you've got a lot of time. And I'm going to make a lot of recommendations for old movies you've probably never heard of, movies you didn't know existed. So I'm going to recommend those, and hopefully you will take this opportunity to go to some of the apps on Apple TV and other things and experiment. Try them out. See if you like them. I hope you do, because I think the best movies ever were made in the 30s and 40s and 50s. And I'm going to make a bunch of recommendations about those kind of movies. And we have the capacity now to see them with a variety of different apps and different services on whatever streaming device you use. You can access them. I mean, some of these movies are even on YouTube, and you can watch whole movies on YouTube. So that is good. Feel free to ask me. I see already we've got 2 Super Chat questions about things that I might have watched, might have seen. Please go ahead and ask me about those things. I'll take them kind of as I make recommendations. I can't promise that I've seen a lot of the stuff, so I might not have. But let's try to focus today. No politics, no philosophy. Let's try to focus on some good stuff, on some values, on some things that we can enjoy, on some things we can benefit from, no matter what happens in the world around us. And also, let's focus on fiction. So people are mentioning nonfiction books, The Cave and the Light, which I recommended a long time ago, which is a great book, which I recommend. But I want to focus on fiction. Let's really get out of this world of advocacy, of ideas, of intellectuals, of politics, because, right now I'm just too disappointed in all of that. Now, by the way, on the coronavirus, I will say, I recommend you watch on the Ayn Rand Institute YouTube channel the discussion today for about an hour and a half with Onkar and Greg. It was very good. There was a lot of really interesting stuff there, and I think a lot of people could benefit from that, but so you could watch that. Another reason I didn't want to do another coronavirus is I thought they did a good job this afternoon. You don't need to hear it all again from me. All right, let me see. It's interesting. Facebook, I used to be able to kind of see who was on Facebook, but now there's this whole new thing. All right, so I figure I'm going to start with TV shows, right? And most of the TV shows are going to be more modern, more recent, because I think most good TV is more recent. And so I'm going to go through some of these. Some of these I've talked about in the past. Some of them I'll say just a few words on them. And others, I'll do TV shows. I've got 34 TV show recommendations for you. I've got hundreds of movies, but I've got 34 TV shows where you could binge watch recommendation for you. Most are modern. I've divided them up into kind of dramas, cop shows, gangster shows, political dramas, science fiction, comedy, and Game of Thrones. I don't know what the category, fantasy, I guess, should be with sci-fi. We're getting a lot of show suggestions. We'll get to them in a minute. All right. So let me just start with these and go down them and we'll go from there, right? We'll start with dramas and my favorite show of the last few years, one of my favorite shows all time. I've mentioned this on here. You know about it, or if you don't know, maybe you're new to the show and you haven't listened to. But is Mr. Sunshine. I love Mr. Sunshine. I think it's one of the most romantic, one of the most beautiful, one of the most touching, one of the most beautifully shot TV series ever. It is a passionate struggle around values, conflict around values. It's got great characterizations. It's got real, and this is what I look for in a show, right? Great characters, a great clash of values, interesting progression, and something, some of these you're not going to get this, but something positive, something inspiring, something you can really get excited about, and people you can really like, people you fall in love with, and there were plenty of those people in Mr. Sunshine, and I mourned when it ended, and it was just part of my life while I watched it, and I think it's a great show to binge watch. I know some of you have started it and couldn't finish it, but you got to go through 3 episodes to really get into it. But once you get into it, I don't know. It's my top recommendation of at least of recent times in terms of a powerful, emotionally fulfilling show. And I don't know how many of you watched it. It is hard to follow, somebody says, because it's in a different language. The character's hard to tell who's who because you're not attuned to differences in faces. But if you can get into it, the rewards far exceed the effort involved in doing it. All right, what else on the drama side? Something positive. I thought great sense of life, just inspiring. Also gave you a bit of sense of history. Was Downton Abbey, of a lot of noble characters, a lot of characters that you could admire and respect, and it was interesting to see the dynamics of the whole thing and how it all worked. I really, again, Downton Abbey was kind of a just pure joy. Sometimes a little boring, but generally just joyful and fun to watch, and positive messaging, and all of that. All right. Let's see. Sunshine. Billions, I've mentioned. A good show, not great, but good. I like the character of the billionaire. I like the character of the attorney, the attorney, what do you call it? The government attorney, because he's so corrupt and so bad in the way they portray him. Well acted, well produced. A perverse view of hedge funds, a very perverse view of how hedge funds function and what they mean. But yeah, I enjoy it. I could take it or leave it, I guess, at the end of the day, but better than average. Mad Men was one of the most frustrating shows I've ever watched. Some great episodes, and the first couple of seasons are excellent. Just the way they designed it, the way they acted it, the way it portrays life in the kind of 60s was so accurate and so interesting. Some of the episodes were heroic and dramatic. And the frustration of the show is that the hero never became a hero. The hero never lived up to his billing. But there were glimpses of what was possible, glimpses of what he could be. Mad Men very much reflects the culture we live in, the potential that people have and don't live up to. But at the same time, a lot of good characters there, particularly the lead, the woman, who starts out as a secretary and turns into a real ad person, really creative person. So I really enjoyed Mad Men, even though I'd say it was about 33% of the shows were brilliant, 33% of the shows were boring, and 33% of the shows were just okay. House, first couple of seasons were excellent. Portrayal of the human mind, its focus on solving problems. Hugh Laurie was brilliant in it. Very anti-religion, very, very pro-science, very, very pro-reason. Again, not super deep, but enjoyable. After 2 seasons, it got repetitive, and also it kind of felt bad for being so anti-religion, so it almost got sympathetic to mysticism. And of course, it had to undercut the hero, who was House. It had to undercut him and undermine him. So if you're binge watching it, watch the first 2-3 seasons, and then I would probably stop after that. All right, Breaking Bad. I can't really recommend Breaking Bad, but it's on the list of everybody's top TV shows. I thought it was too much, too depressing, too negative. It had its moments. It has a positive moral message. Moral compromise leads to a slippery slope, which leads to ever greater moral compromises. And when you do that, you don't just harm yourself, you harm everybody. So it's not selfish to do really, really horrible things, because your values are ultimately destroyed. Your life is destroyed. Everybody around you is destroyed. But okay, I can tolerate that kind of message for a season. But 4 or 5 seasons, it was just too much. I got it. I got the principle. I got the idea. Well acted, well produced, well written. I watched it all. Can't really recommend it. Other than if you want to watch a season to see concretized in front of you what moral compromise, the kind of slippery slope that moral compromise leads to. Very, very powerful in that sense. Okay, The Good Wife. The Good Wife was an interesting show, a lawyer show, legal show. Again, I enjoyed it, particularly the first few seasons. Again, all these shows get a little stale after a while. I liked the lead character. She was she had guts. She had principles. She fought for those principles. She stood by the principles. She was just a good character. Now, if you're obsessed with politics and all that matters to you in life is politics, then she was a leftist. So if you can't watch a leftist who is heroic and principled, then don't watch it. But I really enjoyed it. I thought the cases were interesting. I thought the way they dealt with the cases were interesting. A good legal procedural show with a very positive lead character who was inspiring. Band of Brothers, World War II show that I thought was quite good, brutal, gave you a sense of what a war was like, heroic in parts, but really gave you a good sense of what life is like in a war with good heroic characters. So a show definitely worth watching, and again, a good, I think it was in HBO, a good show that you can kind of binge watch. An old show that I think was excellent, and I know Ayn Rand liked, is Roots. Roots is a show about slavery in the South. It's about one family of slaves, kind of the history of that family through slavery and through, I think there's Roots 2, so it goes through Reconstruction. It's powerful, it's dramatic, it shows the horror that's involved. It gives you a real visceral sense of what it was like without being kind of pornographic in its violence, without using the violence. It plays on what good movies and good shows play on. It plays on, emotional connection rather than the gruesomeness of the violence. And yet it shows heroic individuals trying and to some extent succeeding to survive, to educate their kids, to love, and to live to the extent that they're allowed and the extent that they can within a horrific context, which is the context of slavery. So I would definitely encourage you to watch Roots. Okay, so the next category is broadly categorized as cop shows and gangster shows. Cop shows and gangster shows. So as I think my favorite kind of cop show, gangster show, I think the best written, the best done, and the one that really got to me the most was The Wire. I think The Wire is super powerful. Again, very difficult to get into. I started and gave up on that show a number of times. Well, once I got through a few of the episodes, and part of it is the dialect, part of it is the just catching the dialogue is very difficult. I find just generally the way movies and shows are mixed today, it's very difficult to get the dialogue with the music around it. So if you have the patience and you can stick with it, The Wire is super intense. It shows more than any show I've seen, how a corrupt system corrupts the bad guys. The bad guys who struggle to stay, corrupts the good guys. The good guys who struggle throughout the show, heroically struggle, not to be corrupted by the system. But it shows the price they must pay, and they pay, because the politicians and our educational system and the unions and everything around them is corrupt and rotten to the core. And since the primary of the show is the drug war, which is a corrupt, rotten war to begin with, it shows the consequences of good guys. The cops are good guys, and some of the cops are really good guys. You fall in love with them. They're really heroic figures. It shows what it does to them, and it's such a tragic show, and it's so sad, but it's so brilliantly written. So every season is set in a different context, so whether it's the unions involved in the drug trade, how our educational system betrays young people, and therefore what happens to the drug trade, how the fact that drugs are illegal makes the horrors of that. It shows, so every season, it shows then City Hall, and a whole season focused around the complete corruption, corrupt nature of the politicians in City Hall. And it even shows the gangsters as, you can't say good guys, but I mean, one of the gangsters, played by one of my favorite actors, Idris Elba? Anyway, Idris Elba, I think. Anyway, he I'll mention another show he's in a minute. Even the bad guy, this one bad guy that played by Idris Elba, is like he goes to get an MBA because he wants to do the drug dealing better. He's like investing and trying to deal with it as a business, but of course he can't because it's an illegal business, and by its very nature as being illegal, it forces the whole thing to be destructive for everybody, for his clients, for himself, for everybody around him. Idris Elba is a fantastic actor, and he's brilliant in The Wire, as are all the actors, gangsters and good guy and cops. They're all excellent in the show. So that to me is the best. One of the greatest shows I've ever seen in terms of writing, drama, and everything else, and just emotional tug. I mean, the things they show you there, the things that are real that they show you there, but it's not gratuitous again. It's for a purpose, for a theme. And a theme is incredibly powerful. So let me see. Ben Baer writes, The Wire is one of the best shows I've seen, period. If you like The Wire, you may also like Bosch. I haven't seen Bosch. I've heard good things about Bosch, which is done by the same producer, featuring many of the same actors, and the character of Bosch from the Michael Connelly movie has an even better moral compass than the heroes of the Wire. So yeah, I'll try to watch Bosch through this. Oh wait, so since I mentioned Idris Elba, I'll mention another show of his that I really like, but this one is really dark, and that show is called Luther. It's a BBC show. It's a British show. He plays a detective. The murders are gruesome. What happens to him and his family is gruesome. It's well directed, well made. Again, Idris Elba, I almost watch him see anything, so I love the show. But it is very, very, very violent. You have to be able to stand the violence. One that is just fun and good, well written. Kind of a modern day Western with all the positive elements in a Western that I really enjoyed. I watched all the seasons, all the episodes, and I really liked it. Although, again, the first few seasons are better than the later ones. And one I've recommended before on the show is Justified. Justified is with the actors Ollie Font, who I like a lot. Another movie, I guess, of his that I'll mention. Have I mentioned it? Another TV show. It was a where was it? I had it here. I had it written down here. Deadwood. Deadwood I'm less thrilled about, but I really liked his character and I really liked him as an actor. But Deadwood was a Western, but a Western that kind of modernized Western where everybody's dirty and filthy and every second word is F this, F that is a profanity, and so I watched it, but it was it was very mixed because I liked Oliphant but I didn't like the way Deadwood was done. Justified is not that. Justified is really good, and he's a hero. And there's some real villains, and it's fun, it's funny. And he's just a great character. They just made a great character, and he pulls it off perfectly, I think. So really enjoyable. All right, some pretty dark stuff that you have to like. Again, like Luther. Luther's pretty dark. So some other ones that are pretty dark. Mindhunter, which is I think now on Netflix or something. Which is about the FBI unit that catches serial killers. I found it really interesting. I found it really fascinating, but very dark. because you have to get into the mind of the serial killers, which is what the Mindhunters are really hunting. They're hunting serial killers, so it's pretty dark. Another dark one is Fargo. I like the original Fargo movie by the Coen brothers. Quirky, weird, funny, and yet super violent. Certainly, no question, a certain what do you call it? Nihilism to it. But I have to say I enjoyed it. Fargo, the TV series, I think there were 3 seasons. I thought they were good. Again, very, very, very good at portraying evil and the essence of evil, the nihilistic character of evil, the just aimlessness of evil. The whole point of evil is to destroy for the sake of destruction, and nothing more than that. That's it. That's all that counts. The heroes are plain and bland and uninteresting, for the most part. It's the villains, and to see the villains in that sense was interesting. Another one, very dark, but particularly the first season, and I thought the 3rd season were very good, and that's True Detective. I thought the storytelling was good, dark, depressing, but I found it interesting and engaging, and very, very well acted, the first season and the last season. The last scene is brilliantly acted, where the same guy plays himself as somebody young and old with lots of makeup, and it's pulled off and very well done. I wasn't a huge fan of The Sopranos. I never got the point of it, but certainly a lot of people like The Sopranos. Here's one for Britain. Again, very dark, very psychological, very dark, very kind of depressing in terms of the kind of crimes and but also interesting and interesting in the sense of how it unfolds is Broadchurch, which is a British show. Another one, this one from Sweden, Denmark, but it also has an American version and has a British version and has a British French version, an American Mexican version, is The Bridge. The Bridge, but not the American version. I recommend specifically the Swedish Denmark version is very, very good, very intense. Again, dark, horrible crimes, but the characters of the cops, the same with Broadchurch. The characters of the cops are what drives the story. The character of the cops are very interesting. Okay. Last gangster TV show. Last gangster TV show is Peaky Blinders. Peaky Blinders. It's on Netflix. I think there are 5 seasons so far. Hopefully they'll have a 6th season quickly because 5th season ended on a cliffhanger. So I'd like to know what happens. Very well made. Interesting because it blends some politics and history into the gangster. It's all told from the perspective of the gangsters. It's all about the gangsters. It's in that sense, but it both shows the corrupt world around them and what they do and how they handle it, and then it also shows the damage it does to them, the consequences of crime. And again, the psychological ones, they don't get caught and go to jail necessarily. Some of them get killed. But most of it, it's the psychological consequences. And again, if you watch it, the ending of season 5 is very illustrative of exactly that. I mean, what is the actual cost of being a bad guy? Peaky Blinders shows that, but it's very, very well made. It has some great, memorable characters. And again, a British show. All right, 2 action movies that have certain similarities between them, action shows. One is 24, which I enjoyed when it was running. I mean, it had certain elements that were stupid. It pissed me off. You can't imagine how many times when, it looked like the Muslims were the bad guys, and it turns out they would just be manipulated by the Russians or the Chinese or somebody else, because you couldn't actually have a show anymore where the Muslims were the bad guys. But I find, obviously, the lead character was incredibly heroic. I find it very intense and suspenseful, and just a fun show to watch. And the idea of going through 24 hours with one character, hour by hour, I thought was intriguing. It was fun. A little, you have to suspend belief, and they did things that you couldn't do in 24 hours and all kinds of stuff like that. But still, I definitely thought it was fun to watch. Similar to 24, going on right now is Homeland season 8. It's 8 seasons. Well, it's not always been like 24. It was much more of an intense, focused drama in first 2 seasons. It's become more of an action show. But again, a heroic character who is fighting, and here they have no qualms about showing Islamist terrorists the way they are. Also, politically, a bunch of the things that they do just make me super angry and upsetting and are wrong and don't make any sense. But I thought it was. I think it's decently good, and I'm watching season 8 right now. On the science fiction front, I've got 3 recommendations, or 3 plus recommendations, call it. My favorite sci-fi television series was Firefly. I just loved Firefly. I thought, if you haven't seen Firefly, and if you in these depressing times, you don't want to watch something dark and depressing, you want to watch something fun and light and heroic, then watch Firefly. And I'd actually even recommend the movie that is the kind of sequel to Firefly that continues the story. It's really, the series is fantastic. It's got real heroes. They're a little cynical in their heroism, but at the end of the day, particularly at the beginning of the show, but as you learn more about it, you see that at least the lead character is a real hero, and the cynicism dissipates. The sequel movie is called Serenity, which I enjoyed a lot. I watched it twice, and I really enjoyed it. Again, the heroes are heroic. They fight for values. They fight for their own survival. There's, and they fight for. It's like a Western in space. It's episodic, but there's also an overarching story, which is completed in Serenity. That overarching story is kind of completed with the movie, so I'm glad they made the movie. And just fun, good, enjoyable, inspiring, very, very inspiring. The same director made Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I know a lot of people are huge fans of Buffy the Vampire. I found it too, I guess the word's juvenile, too teenager. I couldn't get into it. I'm not big on vampires and stuff like that, but I'm also just found the production to be a little amateurish. Whereas Firefly, I thought was really, really good. And again, I really got into it after like the 3rd episode. It took a while for me to get into it, but once I was in, I was hooked. And I started watching it. I think I've watched it a second time recently and really enjoyed it. The second one I would recommend is Expanse, which is again on right now. I think we just finished season 3. First 2 seasons were better. Maybe it's season 4 we just finished. It's on Prime. Amazon, basically, when Sci-Fi Channel stopped producing it, Amazon took it over because Bezos is a huge fan. I think Expanse is very good. It's got a certain feel of Firefly. It follows one crew and this crew of good guys and their adventures. And again, there's an overarching story that they're engaged in, an overarching conflict. It has a lot of intergalactic politics between Earth, Mars, and the belt, the asteroid belt. So I think it's really good and interesting. And again, character driven. I love shows, and all these shows are character driven, whether the characters are good guys or bad guys or mediocre guys. The characters are interesting. You want to watch them. You want to see what happens to them. You want to see how they evolve. You want to see what they will do with their lives. Expanse is definitely that, as was Firefly. And then, of course, sci-fi. Star Trek is the original series, Star Trek The Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Star Nine. I think we're all good. I'm a fan of the original series. I've been told the others are even better. Fine. But I think it was just a good show that tried to deal with, successfully, unsuccessfully, philosophical issues and philosophical problems. The whole setup with Spock and the Doctor and the Captain, supposedly pure reason, pure emotion, and the proper balance between the two, is a clever setup, if nothing else. So I thought the shows were good and ambitious in their themes, if you will, right? Ambitious in what they were trying to do and trying to say. All right, let's see. All right, comedy. Now, I don't like a lot of comedy these days, but here are the ones I do like. I liked Silicon Valley. I liked it because it made fun of certain aspects of Silicon Valley that kind of deserved making fun of. At the same time, having a deep respect for, I think, Silicon Valley, and I knew characters like in the story, and I thought it described in an incredibly humorous way things that are actually going on and have been going on and were going on in the Valley, certain archetypes of entrepreneurs and CEOs and venture capitalists that actually exist in the Valley. And it was making fun of aspects of them that I think were worthy of making fun of. So I enjoyed the comedy Silicon Valley. I love Marvelous Miss Maisel, particularly, again, the first 2 seasons. Third season was not as good. But Marvelous Miss Maisel, it was just a joyous, fun, funny, enjoyable show that is rare. It's beautifully shot, very colorful, very stylized, catching that vibe of the 50s moving into the 60s. Yeah, just one of my favorite shows right now on television. Curb Your Enthusiasm. This is one of those shows where 33% of the shows I love, 33% of the shows I hate, and 33% of the shows I'm just eh. But the ones I love are amazingly funny. It's the only show, other than the 3 that I'm going to mention in a minute, it's the only show that literally has me rolling on the floor laughing, that literally gets me laughing when it's good. When it's bad, it's embarrassing. When it's bad, I feel bad for everybody watching it and for the people actually acting in it. Because when it's bad, it's really bad. So if you're willing to suffer through the bad, it's really, it's the good ones are worth it. Are worth it. Okay, the next 4, because somebody in the chat just reminded me of one I'd missed. The next 4 are all British, who I think have, I missed one of my favorite. Okay, the next 5 are all British, and these are my favorite comedies by far. These are hysterically funny, they are clever, they are well made, beautifully written, just spectacular. These, by far, my favorite comedies on television, much better than anything I've seen on American television. Now again, this is all my favorites. I'm not saying these are the best or that you can't like what you like, but these, and this is generally for everything I say here, these are just my favorites. Hopefully there are a few that you can pick up on and enjoy. This is the purpose here. It's not to teach you about art. It's just to convey to you my favorites. All right. Probably my all-time favorite comedy is Fawlty Towers. I mean, Fawlty Towers is, oh my God, it is so funny and so clever and so ridiculous and so nuts and so wild. And it's like Monty Python, but toned down for regular human being. You don't have to be a teenager to watch it. I love Monty Python, but some of it was just, again, it was like, some of it was hysterical, some of it was so wacky and stupid, some of it was just boring. But Fawlty Towers is consistently good, and some of it is brilliant, just outright brilliant. There are shows that I still remember. There are people I know that I say something out of Fawlty Towers, like, I know nothing, and people who've watched Fawlty Towers know that, or Don't Mention the War is another one that anybody who's seen Fawlty Towers will start laughing as soon as I say that. I highly recommend it if you can find it. It's with John Cleese from Monty Python, and it's truly brilliant. Okay, another show that I love. Some people hate. This one is controversial among my friends, I guess. And this is Coupling. 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 It is a show about 3 couples. And it is a show filled with sex. They don't show the sex, but they constantly talk about sex. And it is constantly talk about the differences between men and women. In that sense, maybe it's unbelievably politically incorrect. Yes, I know, Brad, I am recommending Coupling as one of the greatest shows ever, one of the best comedies certainly ever. The good thing is that while Brad, who is on the chat, hates it, his wife loves it, and I really created conflict there. Anyway, I love Coupling. It's fabulous. That kind of show of couples and sex and the relationships and stuff, there's nothing quite like it, nothing quite as good. All right, other British shows. Yes, Minister. If you want to understand the so-called deep state, if you want to understand the way bureaucracy works, but particularly the way what they call the deep state works, then Yes, Minister is a masterpiece. Leonard Peikoff recommended this show and the books associated with it in the 1980s. It is so brilliant at showing how the civil servants, the bureaucracy, manipulates and controls politicians. It's so well written, and it's so funny, and it's so outrageous. You got a couple of seasons, or a few seasons with Yes, Minister, and Yes, Prime Minister, which is also good. Basically, where the civil servants run circles around these people. So excellent. Then Blackadder. Blackadder, I can't remember how many seasons there were, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think. Each one set in a different historical period. It's with Ron Atkinson and Hugh Laurie, and it is rolling around on the floor funny. It is so clever and smart and clever, and dialogue is great, and the humor is fantastic, and it deals with real issues, and it makes fun of real things. And one of my favorite scenes is this guy's dying. It's in the Middle Ages one. Everyone is set in a different period of time. And you've got the king on one side of this guy who's dying, and you've got the church on the other side, and both trying to convince the guy to leave them his properties. And it's just so clever at making fun of religion. Or there's the time where they're selling relics. They're selling relics from the Holy Land, and they've got a sale going on Jesus' fingers. You can get a really good deal on a dozen. So it's just some of it is just really funnier than what I'm making it out to be. And then one that I'd forgotten, but somebody mentioned here on the chat, so I have to mention it because it is funny and it is clever and it is good, although a little over the top sometimes. And again, I don't know that I could watch more than one season of this or more than a few episodes here and there. I certainly couldn't binge watch this. It's absolutely fabulous. Absolutely Fabulous is about these 2 women who are basically grew up as hippies and never grew out of being hippies. And one of them is trying to raise her daughter, and her daughter's completely square and conservative and all this stuff, and the mother is completely nuts, and the daughter is completely straight, and just the conflict that emerges from that and all of that is truly is truly great. So that's worthy. And then the last 2 is Game of Thrones, which I've talked a lot about. I thought was very good. I thought was character-driven, at least in certain seasons. Once they got rid of the million different characters and we focused on just a few, like a dozen, it got very character-driven. I thought in the end went too fast and we lost that character-driven nature of the show, and it just became an action show and just battles. So I thought the middle seasons were the best, but really spectacular. And to do something like that on television on that scale was truly amazing. And then Chernobyl, which I thought was very well made and very good in depicting kind of, again, bureaucracy and what it does, the kind of the horror, the disastrous nature of the Soviet Union and of a system that does not encourage people to think for themselves. All right. That's it for television because, I've already done 45 minutes just on television because I do want to get to some movies. And I think the movies are ones that, probably you've heard less of. So I'm going to start with comedies. And I don't like any modern comedies. So these are all old comedies. So let me just give you a director that I love, pretty much everything he's done. And that is Ernst Lubitsch, 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 Lubitsch. Most of his movies are from the 30s and 40s. Most of the good movies are from the 30s and 40s. By the way, I'm not doing documentaries. I'm only doing fiction. Fiction serves a much higher purpose than any documentary can. It's art. And it's really, really important to do. Oh, somebody mentioned I probably missed John Adams. I probably missed a lot of stuff. John Adams is excellent in terms of a TV show. So I'll definitely recommend. And the other TV show I forgot. Oh my God! See, it's hard because I was putting these lists together off of old lists I have. Fauda, which is another TV show that is excellent, intense, dramatic, heroic. And very realistic and so I would definitely recommend Fauda. And John Adams, of course, the HBO TV show was excellent. Okay, so Ernst Lubitsch, pretty much anything from the 30s and 40s. Before the 30s, they were silent movies. They're great too, but I don't want to push the boundaries of what you guys can tolerate. But it's 20s movies. So everything he did in the 30s and 40s. My favorites. Here we go, my favorites. Clooney Brown, a movie nobody's ever heard of, is a phenomenal, fantastic, fun, enjoyable, benevolent, wonderfully benevolent, interesting characters, a female lead who is just delightful and a real woman in so many respects, but none of them being conventional. So Clooney Brown, if you can find it, you gotta watch this movie. Heaven Can Wait, the original one, Ernst Lubitsch's one. To Be or Not to Be. If you can tolerate a movie that makes fun of the Nazis, which is not easy, but it's truly excellent with Karen Lombard and Jack Benny. One of the funniest movies ever made. That Uncertain Feeling. Shop Around the Corner, one of the greatest romantic comedies of all time, and the basis on which many other romantic comedies were made. Ninotchka, which is a movie that makes my top 5 greatest most loved movies, I shouldn't say greatest, by me of all time. Ninotchka with Greta Garbo makes fun of communism, but is brilliant. Bluebeard's Eighth Wife with Claudette Colbert and Gary Cooper. Angel with Marilyn Dietrich and Herbert Marshall and Marvin Douglas. The Merry Widow with Maurice Chevalier. Just a delightful movie. So much fun. Nobody makes movies like this anymore. The Merry Widow with Maurice Chevalier and Jeanette MacDonald. Design for Living with Gary Cooper, Frederick Marsh, and Miriam Hopkins. Just, what can I say? Delightful, fun, wonderful movies that'll put a smile on your face. The Smiling Lieutenant with Maurice Chevalier. Maurice Chevalier was just such a delight. And that's Maurice Chevalier and Claudette Colbert, another one who's just a delight. These are so fun to watch. These are great movies, better than anything you will see today. Particularly in terms of just a positive sense of life, the positive view of the world of man and you'll walk away with a smile. You'll laugh. You'll smile. You'll have a good time. It's great. It's one of these are my tops. Okay, now I'm going through some others. Some Like It Hot with Marilyn Monroe. My favorite Marilyn Monroe by far is Some Like It Hot. It's the names of people evade my mind or elude my mind, unfortunately. But I highly recommend Some Like It Hot with Marilyn Monroe and a bunch of other famous actors. One of the really great comedies of all time. Sullivan's Travels. Sullivan's Travels is another one from, I think, the 1930s or 40s. Okay, let's skip here. Okay, I love the Marx Brothers. Love the Marx Brothers. Now, you might not. I know a lot of people who don't like the Marx Brothers. I do. Yes, Jack Lemmon, of course, is in Some Like It Hot. One of my favorite movies. So I love the Marx Brothers. I love A Day at the Races. I love A Night at the Opera. Those, I think, are their two best movies. If you were going to watch a couple, Day at the Races and Night at the Opera. Now, they're wacky, so you have to have a specific view of this. His Go Friday. His Go Friday is, I think, one of the funniest movies ever. Clever, quick dialogue, and just a delightful movie. It's with Cary Grant and Rosalind Russell. They talk faster than any two human beings I know talk. It's, of course, made by one of my favorite directors of the past, Howard Hawks, who made lots of great movies, including comedies. And this is probably his best comedy, or at least my favorite comedy. And so I highly recommend His Go Friday. It's had remakes in modern times, but nothing quite as good as the original. Okay, Taming of the Shrew with Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor is, of course, William Shakespeare, one of William Shakespeare's comedies, beautifully made, amazingly acted, and just funny as hell and really clever. So, Taming of the Shrew. Hard to tell exactly what Shakespeare wants from you in this movie, but there it is. All right, let's see. Ruggles of Red Gap. Ruggles of Red Gap. You've probably never heard of that movie, but it's a comedy. Let me see if I can get you some details on it. Ruggles of Red Gap is why isn't it not coming up? It's got one of my oh, I know, I misspelled it. One of my favorite actors in it, Charles Laughton. Ruggles of Red Gap, there it is. 1935. It looks like there's a 1920s movie as well. 1935 with, the person you really need to know is Charles Laughton. Charles Ruggles, actually acts in it. But it's about a British butler who gets to move to America and his experiences in America. And in that sense, and the contrast between British society and American society, hysterically funny, made in 1935. I've noticed people are dropping off because all I'm talking about are these old movies that don't really interest people, but these are really good movies. Okay, two Mel Brooks's movies that are my favorites. His first two movies. My favorite Mel Brooks movies are his first two, and that is one that nobody's ever heard of called 12 Chairs. Again, a movie that makes fun of communism, 12 Chairs, and the other one called The Producers, which is famous and everybody probably knows. So I would recommend those two. All right, I've got a ton of others in terms of movies I like and movies, but those are my favorites. Those are my favorites. I like Woody Allen. I particularly like his early work, Sleeper, for example. But I like Manhattan. I liked most of early, like 1970s, early 1980s Woody Allen. But let's take some dramas, okay? Some dramas. Again, a couple of old movies. The Scarlet Pimpernel. The Scarlet Pimpernel, the original version, is, just heroic, with no, really no, cynicism. It's a 1934 version with a great actor who died as a hero in World War II, and therefore his career got shuttered. He actually was a director as well. Leslie Howard. So Leslie Howard made this movie, The Scarlet Pimpernel, 1934. And then another one, same story basically, made in the 1940s during World War II, directed by Leslie Howard, and starring Leslie Howard, called Pimpernel Smith. Pimpernel Smith. Now this is a movie, Scarlet Pimpernel is about a British who goes to France and saves the aristocrats from the guillotine. Right? And the French are constantly trying to catch him and kill him and so on. Pimpernel Smith is about a British professor who sneaks into Germany and saves scientists from the Nazis. So really good, really great theme, really heroic, really exciting, philosophical, just good in every aspect. So Pimpernel Smith from the 1940s with Leslie Howard in the lead, and Leslie Howard as the director. All right, let's see, if I can get to more modern movies, because I feel I'm losing you guys. Okay, we're going to stick with some older ones. Hitchcock, you got to watch Hitchcock. You got to watch Hitchcock. Rear Window, North by Northwest, Vertigo, and Foreign Correspondent is excellent, and you can go on and on and on in terms of Hitchcock. Just do a marathon of Hitchcock movies. They're so good, and they're so, not the horror ones, the smart kind of mystery ones are really, really good. Okay, some other ones. Queen Christina, Greta Garbo movie from the 1930s. One of those beautiful, striking, powerful movies I've ever seen. I love that movie. A movie called No Highway. No Highway, which is based, I'm pretty sure, let me just check, but I'm pretty sure it's based on a Neville Shute book. Neville Shute well, maybe it's not No Highway. It's No Highway in the Sky. No Highway in the Sky. It's with James Stewart. It's based on a Neville Shute story. It's about an engineer who is a hero for being an engineer, qua engineer. Great movie. So The Miracle Worker makes one of my top 5 movies of all time. The Miracle Worker. That's a movie. That's a must-watch movie. It truly is one of the great movies. Don't watch. Not that I think it's bad, but I just think the original is so much better. Watch the original with Anne Bancroft, Patty Duke, directed by Arthur Penn. It is so powerfully done. So powerfully done. So my recommendation is the original. A Man for All Seasons. By the way, The Miracle Worker was made in 62, so I'm getting a little newer. Man for All Seasons. Lots of versions, but I think the one I like is the 1964 version, with William Sterling as the director and John Gray. It is, of course, the story of Sir Thomas More and Henry VIII. Again, man of principle, standing up to a king. The consequences of that, fantastic movie, well made. Lawrence of Arabia, made in, again, the 1960s, and one of my favorite actors is in it. It's, of course, it's Peter O'Toole. and it's made by one of the great directors, and I'd recommend a number of movies by David Lean. David Lean is an excellent director, again, from the 1960s. Lawrence of Arabia was 62. But let's see if I can just pull up a list of David Lean movies, just a few of them. Bridge on the River Kwai is a great movie. That was in 1957. So those are the two favorite David Lean movies that I have. Last of Mohicans, probably the most modern movie on this list, was 1992. Judgment of Nuremberg from the 1950s. What can you say? Just a powerful movie about an important event, produced and done just beautifully. And it's like a 4-hour movie, so it's good for one of these days where you've got time. Inherit the Wind is another one of course, the famous monkey trials, and it's got what's his name, and go for the 1960s version with Spencer Tracy. It's an excellent movie. Here's a movie nobody really knows. It's called Fury. It's also with Spencer Tracy. It's a movie by Fritz Lang, one of his American movies, I think from the 1930s. It's really interesting and intense and striking. Definitely worth watching. Oops, what happened here? All right, that is Fury. Let's see. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner is another Spencer Tracy movie worth watching about a interracial couple that wants to get married in the 60s, and they come to their white girls' parents, and kind of the struggle they have in dealing with it. Let's see, Executive Suite, one of the best business movies ever made. It's a boardroom drama, that is excellent. By the way, anything Fritz Lang made, including his westerns, are very, very good. I highly recommend it. I'm just going to give you some other names. Casablanca is one of my favorites. Casablanca, To Have or Have Not, also with Humphrey Bogart, is an excellent movie that has kind of the same sense and feel of Casablanca. All About Eve. Of course, 12 Angry Men, the 1957 version. You'll never see a movie with so many first-class, amazing actors. It's just stunning, the quality of the acting. So as you'll see, my lists are going to tilt to old. I like some more modern movies, but I figure you know those. Whiplash, Chocolat, which I like. You know all those movies. I'm focusing on the movies that I don't think you know, that you might not be familiar with, and particularly old movies that are relatively hard to find. Another one is Young Bess. Young Bess, which is the story of young Elizabeth, the Queen. But it's beautifully acted. Let me just check who the actress is. But it's beautifully acted and really well made, and just gorgeous movie, dramatic. Gene Simmons is just beautiful, and Stuart Granger, and it's just well done and exciting. So I would do that. Let me see. Some science fiction movies. Here you're going to get some more modern ones. The Terminator 2, Aliens. Those are my 3 James Cameron movies that I really like. The Abyss. That's 4 James Cameron movies. Back to the Future, which is of course terrific. Blade Runner, which I think is a really, really well-made, if pretty dark, science fiction movie. And, of course, Gattaca, which I think is also very well-made, very interesting, very suspenseful science fiction movie that causes you to think, which is always something that I like. So those are some of my favorite science fiction movies. Let's see some Westerns. I love Westerns. Okay, here's a list of my favorite Westerns. Do with them what you will, right? Oh, somebody mentioned Spartacus. I love Spartacus. Spartacus is one of the great movies with Kirk Douglas. Spartacus is amazing, and it's by Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick made one movie in every genre, almost every genre known to man. They're all brilliant movies, even though I don't like most of them. But Spartacus is by far my favorite Stanley Kubrick movie. Okay, here are my westerns. For what it's worth, you can make a list if you want. The Unforgiven, the 1960 movie with Burt Lancaster. Tin Star with Henry Fonda. Now, I'll just mention, Harry Bensway dislikes this movie terrifically. I think it's one of the best westerns made, and I love that movie. So Tin Star. Tin Star is a sequel, not really, but you can imagine it thematically, in theme. It is a sequel to High Noon. So I love High Noon. It's a fantastic movie. It's got a questionable theme, and it doesn't have a plot, but it is a suspenseful, exciting, engaging movie with a clear hero, right? The sequel, in my mind, not the director's purpose, but in my mind, to High Noon is Tin Star. So watch High Noon first, Tin Star second. Okay, Shane. Shane, the novel is better than the book, is better than the movie. Shane, but the movie is still fantastic. Really fun. Stranger gunman comes into town, falls in love with his family, and defends them, and does what it takes to defend them. The Searchers, John Wayne, a powerful, probably the most powerful of John Wayne's movies. The Plainsman with Gary Cooper, very old Western, but really good, again, heroic, without question. And The Big Country, one of the truly great Westerns, is The Big Country. Slightly below those 6 or 7 is movies like Winchester 73, The Westerner, Western Union from 1941, Union Pacific from 1939, She Wore Yellow Ribbon, Rio Grande, Red River, another John Wayne movie, Rancho Notorious, My Darling Clementine, and Destiny Rides Again, which are both terrific. I love Destiny Rides Again. It's just so good with Jimmy Stewart and Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich and Jimmy Stewart, what a combo. The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. I'm telling you, I don't know modern Western. No modern Western comes close to these. Comes close to these. And the 1960 Alamo. The 1960 Alamo. I mean, Tombstone is good. It ranks one level below these in my list. Right? All right, so, and you know, movies like High Plains Drifter and so on, they're all below this. The spaghetti westerns, Fistful of Dollar, for a few dollars more, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, even lower than that. They're all enjoyable. They're all fun. Clint Eastwood are fun, but they're not great movies, and they're not westerns. They're not great westerns. They're kind of a caricature of a western. They're called spaghetti westerns for a reason. You know, they don't have that intensity and greatness. They're just this lone, and they have no characters. No characters. The Clint Eastwood westerns, Clint Eastwood has no character. He goes to a place, he shoots the bad guys, he goes to the next place, shoots the bad guys, and he keeps going. He's super cool, I know, but he's not a human being. He's a robot. Whereas High Noon, he's a human being. He's dealing with deep stuff, real problems, and real fundamental questions of what it means to be a man. And the same with Tin Star, and the same with Shane, and the same with The Searchers. These are great. I mean, again, when I say great, I mean, I really like them, and I think, I'm not an expert, I'm not an esthetician or whatever. But a movie like Unforgiven, which deals in racism and you know, hatred and what it means and how to deal with it. It's powerful, and it's about love, and it's incomparable to anything made in the modern world, in the modern movie theater today, in my view. I mean, again, there are good movies made today, but they were all on the Breaking Bad side. They're all on good portrayals of ugly stuff, like Parasite. Parasite is a good movie, but unenjoyable and horrible in many ways. All right, let's see some war movies, maybe? War movies. An unknown movie that you probably have never heard of, Pied Piper, again, based on a Neville Schutt story. 1942, Pied Piper, based on a Neville Schutt story. Fabulous, about, again, somebody who goes into occupied France and rescues children. Therefore, the Pied Piper rescues children out of Nazi Germany. But here's some really good war movies. Bridge on the River Kwai, I've already mentioned. The Great Escape, fabulous, the best prison movie ever. The Guns of Navarone, just an exciting, thrilling adventure story. Hangmen Also Die. Hangmen Also Die. Who made Hangmen Also Die? Let me just get that for you, because I think that's one of the most powerful movies I've ever seen. It's really 1943 again, during the war, and it was made by Fritz Lang. Fritz Lang, who was Ayn Rand's favorite movie director. I don't know if you ever saw Hangmen Also Die, but the writer was Bertolt Brecht, the famous playwright. But here he actually writes a story that's intelligible, and it's very powerful, very, very powerful. And it's about the shooting of the Nazi administrator of Czechoslovakia and what happens to his assassins. And so if you can find Hangmen Also Die, I don't think you'll regret watching it. Patton, fabulous, interesting. Whether true portrayal of Patton or not, just a tour de force by what's the lead? Scott, something Scott, right? The lead actor. Pimpernel Smith, I've already mentioned. Shenandoah with Jimmy Stewart is one of the greatest anti-war movies ever. It's also got some really good anti-intrusive government like little bits in it. I also have shown you a clip out of Shenandoah in a past show about Thanksgiving and giving thanks, and I did the piece in Shenandoah where he gives thanks for the food we're about to eat and all that, which is brilliant. One of my top 5 movies of all time, and I think the most brilliant acting performance I've ever seen. George C. Scott was, of course, Patton. The most brilliant acting jobs ever is Charles Laughton in This Land Is Mine, with Maureen O'Hara as well in it. I think it's one of the most touching, powerful, amazing movies ever. If you haven't seen it, it's a must. You can see it on YouTube. It may be elsewhere, maybe on iTunes. I think maybe on iTunes as well. It's worth seeing it on good quality, not just on a little screen on iTunes. Powerful movie about a town occupied by the Nazis and what heroism means, at the deepest sense, what heroism means, and who can be a hero. It really, in some respects, illustrates that we can all be heroes. 12 O'Clock High is a really powerful war movie, and one of my favorites with Burt Lancaster is The Train. Very intense, not a lot of action, no violence, but it's about trying to save artworks from the Nazis during World War II and in France, and it's again about a reluctant hero who becomes a great hero. So The Train is a great movie. And again, I'm not giving you a lot of modern movies. The Train was made in 1964. This Land Was Mine was in the 1940s. And it was made by John Frankenheimer and Arthur Penn, both of them, and both very good modern directors, but modern in the sense of the 60s and 70s. It's with Burt Lancaster, and it's definitely a recommended movie. Manhunt in 1941, which is a thriller, is a movie also by Fritz Lang. To Have or Have Not, I mentioned before, is a movie worth watching. Strangers on a Train, which is Hitchcock, is a great movie. And let's see. Action movies, pure action movies. These are not quite at the level of some of the other movies I've mentioned, but Man on Fire, I really like. The Professional, I really like. True Lies was my favorite, one of my favorite Schwarzenegger movies. Gladiator, and some of the original James Bond movies. Let's see if there's anything else really interesting here. I like the Lord of the Ring trilogy. I thought it was beautifully made and exciting and engaging, as ridiculous as the stories are. Stealing Heaven is a movie I'd like to recommend. It's about a Veronese, the philosopher, intellectual of the Middle Ages, before Aquinas, really pre-Middle Ages, the Dark Ages. Stealing Heaven was made in the 1980s, I think. Let me just tell you. It was made in 1988. Very, very powerful. And again, not a movie you will find on many people's lists, but I really, really enjoyed it. Let's see. Other movies, mention some of those. Let's see if there's anything here worth mentioning. I've got lists of hundreds of movies that I'm looking through. Somebody mentioned Working Girl. I really like Working Girl. It's with, I forget her name. I'll tell you in a minute. It's one of the few pro-business, pro-finance movies, which I really enjoyed. It's a movie from 1988 with Melanie Griffith, which has one of the sexiest lines ever. She delivers this to Harrison Ford. She's sitting at a bar with Harrison Ford. I can't remember what he says or what she says. And basically, the line is, I've got a mind for business and a bod for sin. And the way Melanie Griffith delivers this, you just want to melt. So I really liked Working Girl. Again, a pro-finance, pro-hostile takeover movie. That I thought was really, really good. Again, not at the level of some of these other movies that I've discussed, but a fun, engaging movie. Okay, as I said, I've got a list of hundreds of movies. I gave you the creme de la creme. At least some of this stuff was the creme de la creme. I probably missed some other creme de la creme, but those are some of my all-time favorites, and that should keep you busy for a few. Isolations at home. So I hope you enjoy that. Somebody says Peter Schiff just finished a 4.5-hour end of the world live stream. I'm not surprised. I disagree with Peter Schiff on end of the world stuff regularly, and I probably disagree with him. I did say, if somebody asked if I said Gladiator, I did. I enjoyed Gladiator. It's not a great movie, but it's a good movie. It's of the modern movies, again. My favorite of the modern movies is The Last of the Mohicans. I really, really, really liked The Last of the Mohicans from the 1980s. And I know you guys don't consider 80s as modern, but I can't, again, in recent times, I've loved Chocolat, which is a French movie. I've liked Whiplash. And I've liked other movies. I can drop a list of more modern movies if you want that I have enjoyed that are not on the levels of these, but at least are decent and good. All right, I'm going to go to your Super Chat questions, comments. Let's see. I just finished first season of Shtisel on Netflix, drama about ultra-Orthodox Jews in Israel. Really great, actually, very much like Tolstoy. Have I seen it? I have not, but it's been recommended to me by a number of people who I respect. And it sounds really, really good. I'm not interested. I despise the ultra-Orthodox. I mean, I really do despise them. I would find it too difficult to watch a whole series about them and their life any more than I would like to watch a series about ultra-Orthodox Christians or ultra-Orthodox Muslims. I find that world so offensive and so barbaric, primitive, that I'm not interested in. And if there's even a hint of portraying them positively or I just don't want it because I'm not interested in it. Okay. Did you see the movie 1917? Not yet, but I will soon, so I will let you know what I think of it after I see it. Nonfiction, Jonathan Honing now twice has recommended this. It must be really good. Nonfiction, it's called Man on Wire, 2008, an inspiring, exciting historical documentary. Highly recommended, and it's about this guy, I think, who walks on a wire between the Twin Towers. I think that's right. I would get so spooked by a movie like that, right? That because I've got fear of heights. But yeah. Have you seen the show Hell on Wheels? No, I've seen a little bit of it. It wasn't interesting to me. I think it's about the motorcycle gang. Not my thing. Somebody asked about Gran Torino. Gran Torino was good, but I don't think any of the Clint Eastwood movies are great. I think they're all okay. I'll watch them. I'll watch all of them, but I don't get excited about them. Do you think any Monty Python was funny? Sure, some of it was hysterical, and some of it was too wacky, and some of it was boring. I saw when I was a kid, I saw Monty Python on stage once live in Radio City. Is it possible to see coronavirus with a wolf or Bernie? Okay, I have no idea what that is. Don't know. Opinion of LA Confidential. I think Rand was a fan of noir. She liked noir, what do you call it, novels, books. I think there's a lot of, LA Confidential was good. Again, I don't think great, but there's a lot of good noir, and the best noir is again from the 1950s. Let me just pull up. There's a really good, since you mentioned noir, really good Fritz Lang noir detective story from the 1950s. Let me see if I can find it. Come on, where's Fritz Lang? No, not actors. There's no actors. This is ridiculous. This is IMDb. It should know the director, Fritz Lang. Okay, I don't know. Anyway, there's a good film noir, but that is done by Fritz Lang, and it's excellent. And there's a lot of good film noir with Humphrey Bogart from the 1950s. There's a lot of that is really, really good. Okay, what would be the criteria for choosing someone to co-author a book on leadership? Oh, that's my book on leadership. Well, they have to be somebody who I respect their intellect, that knows a lot about the topic, but is willing to learn a lot and really delve into it and really go all into it and engage with it. Is willing to engage with me, take criticism, take editing. They would have to be really smart and a really good writer. In other words, Don Watkins, incredibly knowledgeable, completely gets immersed in a topic, studies everything, gets to the point where even though I know more about the topic to begin with, he lands up knowing more about the topic after the book is written by far. Great writer. So somebody who I can really work with and somebody I can really, really work with well. So I can know a topic really well. I can convey it to Don, and he can then take it and work with me and, turn it into a book. So Don, all 3 books I wrote were with Don. So I don't really have experience with others. I've written essays with Alex Epstein. I've written essays with Ilan Jono. That's a high bar. Those are all really, really smart, really, really competent, really, really able people who are really a pleasure to work with. All right. Okay. What would be the quick? Oh, that was that. I'd like your review of Guru, a 2007 Indian movie about a business guru who is portrayed as a hero in the movie. I'll try to watch it. I haven't seen it. Given that the majority of murders are drug-related, is it moral for a cop to investigate a drug crew as a backdoor to? Sure, I mean, they have to do it. It's moral to investigate drugs because it's their job. I mean, you once you become a cop, you have to follow the law, and that's the law. And certainly the relationship with murder is vast, and it's completely appropriate for them to investigate it in and of itself, and also in the context of a murder. Okay, I'm trying to give you quick answers on one. Did you like the movie The Usual Suspects? I did. I thought it was a good movie. Again, I didn't love it, but I thought it was good, and I enjoyed it. Okay. It was clever. It had great twist at the end, which I didn't see coming, and that's always fun to have something like that. I recommend these top 5 currently airing TV shows from least favorite to favorite. 68 Whiskey, never seen it. Dispatches from Elsewhere, haven't seen it. Better Call Saul, I tried, couldn't see it. Too many yucky people, don't see the point. Didn't have the intensity of Breaking Bad, but had all the ugliness, has all the ugliness of Breaking Bad. So I couldn't see it. Briar Patch, haven't seen. The Sinner, I haven't seen. Okay, the success of Game of Thrones proved that audiences are hungry for real drama, complex characters, and good storytelling, and lots of violence, and political intrigue, and not having to really think about more than that. So yes and no, right? It was about power, it was about violence. But yes, I think at least it had drama and it had somewhat complex characters. Again, particularly in the middle seasons, not so much towards the end. Veronica Mars and Heroes taught me my English. I never watched either one of those. I know people who really, really liked Veronica Mars. I don't know anything about Heroes, but I know a lot of people who like, again, people I respect who like Veronica Mars. Have you seen The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp? No, I have not. I really enjoyed October Sky. So did I. Wonderful movie. October Sky is a wonderful movie about ambitious kids and ambition and the meaning of ambition. Based on true story about Homer Hickman, who worked for NASA. So yes, definitely a movie to put on the list to watch. Just fabulous. And a good movie to watch with kids, so a good family movie. I skipped family movies, but generally I love much of what Walt Disney made. Have you ever read Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett? I don't think I ever read it. I think I watched the TV series. There was a TV series, Pillars of the Earth, and it was well made, and it was well done, and I enjoyed it. I can't remember it being spectacular, but I think I enjoyed it. Have you read the Sparrowhawk series by Ed Klein? No, I have not. Pesto is the greatest pasta sauce, yay or nay? I don't do pasta, so therefore I don't do pasta sauce. But that was worth $2 just for that, right? I don't eat pasta, so. And I doubt pesto is the greatest pasta sauce. Oh, give me a break. I mean, you go to Italy, you get these sauces with truffles. Oh my God, just the smell melts me. So no, there's no way pesto is the best pasta sauce. Sorry to disappoint, but there's got to be a million sauces that great Italian chefs can make to put on pasta that is 1,000 times better than pesto. What do you think of operas? The Met has been streaming them online for free. Currently common. Oh wow. Well, let me just find this. So first, I love opera. I'm a huge opera fan, and there are tons of good operas to recommend. And if the Met is streaming them, oh my God, what a feast you could have just watching the Met operas. But there were also movies of operas that are fantastic. And here is a list. There we go. A list of great movie operas. And movie operas. Well, it's not going to be a list because there are not that many of them. Basically two that I love. Now, I know some people don't love one of them. La Traviata, I think Zappirelli made it, the Italian director, is got to be one of the greatest, a great movie, and for an opera, the best ever made. It's just beautifully made. The singers are Placido Domingo. The singers are just spectacular, gorgeous production, and it's fantastic. There is a magic flute that actually Ingmar Bergman made, which is really, really good. There is also a Othello. Now, I know some people don't like the Othello movie because certain scenes were taken out that they resent, but Othello, the movie of the opera, is fantastic. And then there's Carmen, a movie that was made in 1984 off of the opera Carmen, which I really highly recommend. So there you go. Favorite Beethoven sonata. Oh my God. Piano sonata, I assume, not violin or just piano sonata. What's my favorite? I mean, the Hammerklavier or the Moonlight Sonata. I mean, the famous ones. I think one of those two. I think it would be one of those two. But I love almost everything Beethoven. Not equally, of course. I'm not egalitarian. Some things more than others, but I do love Beethoven. Okay, I think we're done. We're done with the Super Chat questions. We're done with everything else. Thank you for all of you who supported my Super Chat. Thank you, Linda, for such a generous amount on the question. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you. This was kind of fun doing. It kind of brought me up a little bit. Hopefully it did you as well. Hopefully actually watching the movies will be really good for you and you'll really enjoy them. So I look forward to your feedback on watching the movies and watching the TV shows and letting me know what you think. Somebody says more history lessons. Yaron, teach us history. I mean, the frustrating thing about that is that I'm not a historian. I don't know that much history. And it's kind of, in some ways, it's kind of sad that I'm teaching you history because I'm not an expert. Now, I know certain things about history, and I'm a good integrator, but in terms of the facts of history, and I'm not an historian. I wish there was more, but I will try to think about eras in history and things in history, specific events or specific things about history that I know and find interesting that I could convey to them. I mean, to me, I'm always shocked by how much more I want to know about history. I wish there was more time in the day, and I need to do more reading in history because I find history fascinating. There's a sense in which I love history, and if I went back and redid my career, maybe I would do it in history. Rather than in engineering, my undergraduate at least. All right, thank you all. This was fun. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll talk to you all soon, probably on Friday. And have a good week, and let's hope that the news in the next few days starts getting better on all fronts. Bye.